Hello and welcome to this Investglass webinar. I'm Alexander of Investglass. Investglass.com is the #1 Swiss CRM based here in this beautiful city of Geneva. It's a pleasure to have you today for a webinar that is partly interesting around digitalization. Digitalization has been a topic we've been looking after for the past 7 years with Investglass. And today I'm going to share with you some of the experience we had with banks and some of the experience we had with insurance companies. But with no further ado, let's dive into this presentation. So let me show you my screen and let's go. All right. So today's topic is the myth of digitalization, right? So digitalization, as I said, is a topic that we've been looking after for the past 7 years now with Investglass. Investglass is an all-in-one solution built to help you speed up your sales, make your investment solicitation smarter, digitalize any type of experiences you would have in banking or insurance. It's a bundle of several tools from the digital onboarding, flexible CRM, portfolio management and order management, digital signature, investment tools, and obviously, most importantly, the customer portal. Now, the reason why we're going to talk to you about this topic today is because it's important for most of you to position yourself as a digital brand. You all know those three brands. And usually when I'm doing this presentation, I'm asking people, which one do you trust the most? Most people would say that Amazon is the brand they trust the most. And usually the reason for that is because they're going to receive a service and they don't think too much of the rest about the quality of the service, the quality of the delivery, I would say, that you would have with Uber, or where is your information going to land, in which server, and how it's going to be used and perhaps abused, like Facebook. Now, it's important also that you position yourself in the brand of the digital space. Now, obviously, this is linked to the service, but it's also a link to the interactions. Now, if you look at three politicians, and I would ask again, which one do you trust the least? Here you would be surprised, but obviously it is a very difficult question. Perhaps some of you don't know the gentleman in the middle is Uli Maurer. He's one of our Conseil d'État, state head of state in Switzerland. Now, the question is, how do you position yourself with those digital brands, right? If you're a broker dealer, how do you compare yourself to a Saxo, a Swissquote, a Schwab, Charles Schwab, or Boursorama? If you're in private equity, how do you compare yourself to the Moonfair, which is a new type of private equity solution, accepting investments around 200 or 400,000 euros for a private equity investment, which is usually more around millions. And Coinbase, which obviously is the broker around the cryptocurrencies. So here, which one do you trust the most? And if your company has 10 years, 50 years, 100 years of age, how do you compare to those brands? And here the question that I'm sure you have in your mind is, how do I manage trust? Because the biggest issue in digitalization, it's trust. How do you go from a state that is the known, okay, so yes, we've been around for 100 years. Okay, we can imagine that you'll be around still for 100 more years. To a state that is the unknown. Is this company solid? Is this bank solid? Is this banker and CEO solid? How is the balance sheet? If you're an insurance company, what are the odds that I'll be properly receiving, my insurance if I have a damage? So here basically is how you drive between the known and the unknown, your customers, your prospect, without falling into the biggest splash of uncertainty. Obviously, we are now able to do bigger jump into digitalization. 2021, because of COVID, is pushing so many of us into a new way of communicating, engaging with the first time with prospects, getting prospect turned into a customer. So we have to jump into those new digital tools, and trust obviously change completely because we had no choice. There's a herding effect. Obviously, if people are using Zoom, why don't we? Would you use Zoom? If people use Signal, why don't you use Signal? If people are asking you to do a QR code and sign electronically, why won't you do the same? And this trend is actually accelerating. Now, let me show you this video. Oh dear Jesus, I could never. Oh, where's it going? God damn, Bill. Oh my God. Oh, this is so scary. Oh Jesus, this is my first day out. I'm about to die. Oh, come on, relax. Oh my God, Bill. I couldn't do it. Oh, how is the car coming? All right. Thank you for watching this video. And you see here, you have an example of how modernization of something that people know can actually be very scary. It's the same effect you would have in digitalization. Why? Because digitalization, it's obviously a new technology which deals with two different states, the one that you know to the one that you don't know. Everyone loves to stick with things that that we know. That's normal. Humans don't like unknowns, don't like probability. Now, the biggest question is how, with your brand, how, with the tools that you're going to use, you're going to bridge the known and the unknown. The known and the unknown in the middle, you see, you have the risk. And I'll show you why there's a risk. Because the risk might not actually be fulfilled with a solution, and perhaps what you're going to put in the middle might be difficult to understand or even frightening, like the woman we've seen before being frightened by this automatic driving Tesla car. What you're going to build, it's basically the cement. It's the bind between the known and the unknown. This is what we call the trust. Trust is the bridge between the known and the unknown in digitalization. And therefore, it is very important that you get your prospects ready if you give them a tablet to open their bank account. If you ask them to sign electronically and get a second device because there's a 2FA that you want to use. Now, if you don't explain this correctly, so if your intent is not explained correctly, you're going to fall into the distrust. And this is a danger zone. It's the zone where basically the tools being useful become gadget, and from a gadget they become basically your worst enemy. So you tried actually to improve your sales process with digital account opening, turning your paper into an iPad, nice forms, and at the end the people in front of you say like, yeah, but you know what, I want to come to the office and do it with you. And you would say, well, that's now not new process, you can't, you have to do it remotely. And then they say like, no, I want to come and do it with you. What I mean by that is all those little signs, all those little hints are actually the new elements you have to listen. We're not talking about a transaction here, we're talking about building interactions. So if you feel that someone is actually reluctant, you have to offer a plan B. And this is the bigger danger in the full digitalization, is that you don't offer a plan B. There was this famous electronic broker which built a robo advisor. And this robo advisor had discretionary portfolio mandates linked to a list of questionnaires. So you would have you answer. So you will answer a dozen questions, and at the end they will create some kind of profile and link to this profile a portfolio mandate. The way it was built, the colors were very male alpha. It was silver, it was black, it was very Bloombergish, if you see what I mean. It was not at all meant to be colorful, open. And here you won't hear me say built for millennials, because I think this is a big fallacy. It was just not built for multiple segments of users. And I think this is the most important thing you have to remember, is how you're going to build a digital experience that is meant to be used by different segments of age, of understanding, and just patience, right? Now, trust, it's a confident relationship with the unknown. And when you want to build a banking trust, when you want to, there are so many banks that come to me and say, Investglass, how do you deal with trust with digital tools? Is it even possible? Well, yes, it's possible, but you have to understand how you're going to actually entertain this relationship. And again, we're talking about relationship, because obviously you have in most of your banks or insurances one big issue, which is how am I going to value my service? And you're obsessed about this transaction part. But obviously, transaction is something important, but in the eyes of the clients, one of the most important part is usually the interactions. And you see here very quickly that we're not talking about the same concept. And transactions is about money, interactions is about trust. So if you're dealing with digitalization into your business and you want to make sure that you won't fall into the biggest splash of a entity, if you want to make sure that you won't be going into a distrust, you must make sure that your interactions will be properly organized before you are pushing a prospect into a complex digital experience. Again, it's not a game usually what we're offering. Sometimes it can be like with a neuro profiler, one of our fintech colleague, it can be a gamified experience. But here again, don't think that gamification is going to solve something that actually should have been done with human interactions. So it's important when you are going to build your journey to know where is the added value and where you should put some human interactions. Offer a plan B. So is transparency the magical cure to trust? Well, we started Investglass 7 years ago. I remember this was the big topic. And by the way, the reason why we call Investglass is because we wanted to reflect the values of investments and transparency with the word glass. Where in reality, this has not been the truth. Everyone thought that transparency would lead to more trust. And that is not the case. However, what we found is that deception will bring less trust. So, again, trust is so important. But whatever tool you will be using, it is important to build confidence. And to build confidence, it's something like, oh, you have an email sent to you from a client. An answer is expected in less than 24 hours. It's even a lot, 24 hours. People want to be engaged in dialogues, which means also that your help desk, your answers should be streamlined into pre-built workflows. Each employee should know where to divert an inquiry. Obviously, there could be competences. So I remember a bank telling me, well, Alexander, we have fantastic bankers that will actually spend as much as their time they can to offer a tailored service. Yeah, that's fantastic, but this isn't a business, right? This is not a process, and there might be very little reliability. Of course, there will be competence, but there will be very little reliability. Imagine at the end, there's a bigger client calling. Who should I serve first as a banker? The small client asking me for something complex, or the big client asking me for something simple? Then there should be empathy. This is a very famous Charles Schwab advertisements. I think it's 2009, 2010, 2010. You can look into YouTube and find it. And they were saying, like, I talked to my stockbroker today. He asked me, we had this very interesting conversation, but after 10 minutes of conversation, I figured out that the only thing that was actually important for him was his family and his next vacation in the Hamptons. He didn't ask me anything about my family, didn't ask me anything about my vacations. And well, I understood exactly where was the empathy. And that's exactly it. You must build relations with empathy. And this is how you would eventually build trust around your brand. And then integrity, but I think that everyone will agree with that. Now, the digital experience should respect three core elements. First is the responsiveness. I think you could have the best tools in the world. You can be using Investglass on the whole full spectrum of your digital experience with your customers. If you don't have responsiveness, this will actually be a failure one day or another. Having another gadget, people playing it, and then collecting doléances, people complaints, it will be just another failure. Then consistency of behavior. It's important when you have a digital tool that you make sure that the triggers that getting out from those automations, for example, approval request, if you're doing account opening, will have a consistent behavior. Your team, your employees, your colleagues should know how to react to the machine behaviors. Because obviously, when we have digital experiences, and this is something we haven't said, but you have automations and AI, artificial intelligence. So the human has also to understand how the machine should be working for them to understand how they should be reacting if the machine is not acting well, right? And then when you have a digital experience throughout your company, it is the number one element is to make sure that your clients and your staff perceive the added value the same way. If they don't perceive the added value in the same way, you're just going to make a big flop, right? It's not going to work. People are going to find it's another time-consuming workflow. It's another fancy gadget. It doesn't solve my own problem. And obviously, people don't look at their problem as being part of a problem of their whole wealth or their whole company. It's their own little problem they have in the next 24 hours. Now, the way we solve this with Investglass is first making sure that our clients get the segments right. Here, what you see is the different 5 stages that you will find into the sales cycle. Prospection. How do you create trust with your prospects? Who are your prospects? Are you scrapping data from Google, YouTube, LinkedIn? Are you enriching this data with a third-party app? Are you doing automatic email discovery and then email campaigns with cold emails, which can be a problem with GDPR in some of your countries? Are you using cold calling tools and you're building your sales lists every morning for your prospects to be called, and your sales are just calling those numbers, storing them, and then what happens after that? Are you looking after at the product discovery, so the stage 2? how do you engage in a digital experience with those new clients? How do you actually uh, offer your services? There are usually two types of services, or two types, I would say, of discovery. The first discovery is for the account opening, and the second is for the subscription. So yeah, I'm not talking about the actual what you're going to show off, right? I'm talking about business wise. What are the two main elements that are going to help you to make business? Discovery is going to be account opening, subscription. And here again, perhaps you're an excellent wealth manager. You might not need such a big account opening digital tool, because the account digital tool will basically be the bank. So your GFE, EM, however you call it, um, you will have your clients opening an account with a custodian or a private bank, and you will have a power attorney. So the paperwork on the account opening is going to be small, it's quite small. But for the subscription, it can be very high, because you're going to start offering some third-party products, platforms to those clients, and there you'll have SLAs and terms of service and privacy policies and all this paperwork. You want just one digital signature. Now, for a bank, it will be different, right? Because based on the onboarding you want to offer, perhaps you want to offer a robo advisory experience. Perhaps you want to offer portfolio budget, risk budget optimization experience, or tax optimization experience. So here, I would say the subscription might come before the account opening to tease the prospect, and then you'll go back to the account opening. And what's cool with Investglass is that then you can pull all those answers back into a merge PDF, like it was one single document that you can sign. So no more multiple signature, no more multiple fill in. It's filling in from the first document. The second will be partially filled, and the third might be filled at 90%. So that's the experience. You want to make sure in the discovery that your clients start putting some data, that you start putting also some data for the opening, stage 3. The opening should be simple. Your customers, future customers, should understand what they're signing. They should understand the risks. They should understand what you're going to do with the data. Are you going to call them every morning? Are you going to call them once a month? Are you going to call them once every quarter? Make sure you have reminders, because if you start engaging yourself, and say, well, we're going to call you every month, but you don't do it, you're going to create distrust. And then the approval, the digitalizations of approval, is basically some automations with people at different stages that are supposed to say, yes, I approve or reject. Here, what we build with Investglass is a tool which prevents any types of emails exchange, cumbersome back and forth, emails lost, pieces of, like ID cards and stuff like that we need, that is actually not fitting correctly. Boom, this is solved. You have your approval process, you send it, it's neat, clear, and the clients also get satisfied, because the account opening process, the approval process that would take perhaps weeks, now can take days. And if it would take days, now it can even take hours or even less, right? And then last but not least, the distribution. So now it's time to show off, right? You want to push investment solicitations. You want to make offers. You're in private debts. You want to send some investment solicitations. You're in Sharia compliant investments. You want to show your funds. Here, Investglass client portal has a portal to make sure that the right customers are looking at the right information, meaning information they are able to look because it's suitable, it's appropriate, they have the knowledge, and just simply because they are interested, right? Investglass then will capture each time a piece of these documents are opened. Now, the other myth of digitalization, obviously, is, can a machine do the job for me? Here, we are more in the fact can the background of your sales. And sorry, it's really in French, but I guess most of you can read it, and I will translate it. Sales automation, obviously, as you know, it's Investglass core competence. It's our obsession. This is where we are absolutely mastering our topic. The first, obviously, is the CRM. So if you start your digitalization, make sure that you digitalize the right experience and collect from those digital tools information back into Investglass CRM. We have an API. So API means application program interface. Basically, it's a system where you can push the data or pull the data to Investglass or from Investglass. Okay. Some of you are using 2, 3, 4 tools. So for Onfido, Basis ID, Credas, you have to make sure that each triggers, each piece of information will be properly stored into the CRM. Then the AI, intelligence artificielle. Investglass is helping you to push the right information to the right sales, to the right colleague. Obviously, you can set up everything. So Investglass is not providing any solicitations itself, but the way we build it means that the priority in the data that you will see, the priority in the deals, the priority in the products that you want to sell is going to be first filtered by different criteria and a bit of magic sauce that will make your sales more, I would say, resilient or during the day, more reactive also if a client is bringing some ideas, and more active if you are looking to offer a more, I would say, a push-oriented type of service. And then template, obviously, once you collected the right information and the right product, you want to sell it, right? So you have those bunch of templates, and those templates can be seen in different places, because you can decide to show the template to show this solicitation on a mobile phone. You might want to see and show it on the iPad while you go to the client premise, or on the client portal if you want a client to access those proposal from their homes or office. And the distribution is actually extremely important, because this is where you will actually create an interaction. So some of your interactions can be very much transaction, right? Because you pay me, I give you this. I do a timesheet, you get this information. But the way you're going to also wrap it and deliver it will also be a bit of your trust, I would say, your trust assets. Okay. If you select email over SMS, or if you select VoIP, voice over IP, or face to face, the perception of the value is going to be different. First, because there are many things that we cannot mimic with digital tools. So the way we move our face, our hands, the way we dress, the way we interact. This, unfortunately for now, still is a lot of human-oriented experiences. So you must have this experience if this is needed. And if it's not needed, or the client just doesn't value it, why don't you go for a client portal? Why don't you go for an automated sales proposal? Now, the last topic we're going to talk about for digitalization, it's the topic of KYC remediation. So what is KYC remediation? KYC remediation means collecting the data when your CRM, KYC, know your customer, KYC, the CRM KYC, is either false, or with errors, or just with gaps of information. The idea is to facilitate the time and the manner to collect this information and check the KYC. So for this, obviously, Investglass has onboarding forms that you can use to collect data. We have automates to spot if information are false, or missing, or just needs a review. I'll give you so this is what we call an incidence. You have to review the data once every month, once every year, once every 5 years, based on the different risk of clients you have. This is only automations. Okay, you're not going to look into a spreadsheet and say, oh, those clients are the one we have to call, right? And you're not going to do email one by one. You're going to use Investglass automates. You're going to use Investglass forms. You're going to use Investglass sending email campaigns to make sure that you are doing your KYC campaign correctly. And this obviously goes with tools that are connected to your stack. So if you have email system, well, the email system will be connected to Investglass. If you have a phone system, the same. SMS, the same. So communication is key. And last but not least, again, is the validation and approbation. You want to make sure that each piece of information that you receive is actually validated properly. And it can be validated by an AI again. It can be validated by a human. And you want to make sure that if the information is not compliant, it will be correctly escalated. So what we do, perhaps in conclusion, Investglass here, it's orchestration, obviously, because we have all those core elements of digitalization. But what is it's interesting is that we will also build with the bricks you already have a digital experience that will be absolutely trustful. For the rest, and that's the conclusion of today's presentation, your digital experiences should be responsive. You should have a consistency of behavior, and your staff should be properly trained, obviously. And last but not least, your client and your staff should perceive the added value of digitalization. So I hope you enjoyed this Investglass presentation. If you have any question, as usual, send us an email at contact@investglass.com. As the COVID situation is getting better, we'll reorganize again the Genius Bar luncheons. So if you're interested to participate to our luncheons, let us know. The luncheons will take place in Switzerland, in Zurich, Geneva, in France, in Lyon and Paris, in Luxembourg City, and in London. This is the program for the next quarter, and so for Q4 and Q1 2022. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you are enjoying your Investglass experience, and see you soon.